When Davenport Superintendent Art Tate said his students were worth less in the eyes of the law,
we have been discriminated against, and the state needs to correct that.
the news surprised many at the state capitol.
I'm not sure there was half a dozen legislators out of the 150 of us that actually knew that inequity existed.
Former Iowa House Speaker Craig Paulson says most lawmakers thought the districts were funded equally.
We thought that was true across the state.
They aren't. District spending was capped in 1971. School funding formula curator Marvin Selden says he did it for a simple reason.
They spend more money than the state's got to put in more.
After we searched all the records and talked to lots of experts, including the creator of the funding formula itself, we couldn't find a smoking gun explaining why Davenport gets less money per student. We went back to the formula. In 1971, the state set a limit, but it allowed districts to spend up to 10% more than that limit. If someone went over that, they got pulled in front of a committee and had to defend their budget. But it's this gap here that still exists and causes the variances between the districts, and most likely the problem that you see today.
It's almost an issue more of historical accident than it is on anything that probably was planned or even thought through at the time.
School finance expert Larry Sigel says the disparity became clear as state lawmakers tightened yearly school budget increases.
When you have no other source to increase your revenues, you have to start looking at those things where neighbors are getting to spend more than you.
Davenport proposed a temporary fix to lawmakers last school year. It wanted the law changed to let it use money sitting in its savings account. The change would allow Davenport to spend at the same level as higher spending districts. Paulson says it quickly became unworkable.
We found out, well, no, we're talking about, half the school districts in the state, and the only way that this gets backfilled is, as a practical matter, is on the backs of the property taxpayer.
He says eventually those savings accounts need to be refilled, and they are refilled using property taxes. Paulson says that's unpopular with many lawmakers.
Now we're talking about basically undoing the property tax reform and relief bill that we just did 2 years ago.
The Education Department proposed two other fixes. Lawmakers could force the high spending districts to cut back, or lawmakers could increase funding to the lower spending school districts. They could bring them in line with the higher spending school districts.
At some point in time, the only way to resolve this is to figure out how to get that money into the stream, and I think that ends up happening just by the foundation formula bumping up in increments.
There are a lot of political forces on holding down spending. I think what's interesting is, although that theme has been throughout the last several legislative sessions, Iowa spends a lot less per student than the rest of the country.
Lobbyist Margaret Buckton represents lots of school districts. She proposed increasing state aid to districts stuck at lower spending levels. The total cost comes to $84 million. That's only a 3% increase on the $2.7 billion Iowa taxpayers already send to their schools, and she says the extra money could be phased in gradually.
I know that $84 million is a lot of money in the context of the state expenditure, but we didn't get into this inequity in 1 year. We probably can't get out of it in a year.
Paulson says it could be done over time. In fact, that's how the 1971 formula worked too. It took 10 years to ramp up the state's commitment to education.
It probably takes several years. $80 million is a really big number to try to figure out in 1 year, but it might not be such a big number to try to figure out and get rectified, say, over 5 or 10 years.
But Paulson retired this summer. It'll be up to another leader in the Iowa House to keep track of Iowa's school funding formula. And with Davenport vowing to break the law, school funding will keep demanding lawmakers' attention. Mark Stevens, KWQC, TV6 News.